This is a special episode brought to you by F5. 2023 was undoubtedly a breakthrough year for generative AI. It was the year that AI officially became a household name. However, with continuous advancements in technology, the dangers linked to data breaches and cyber threats are escalating. Hi, I'm Deepthi Ahuja, I head content at HT Smartcast, and I'm also your host on Techcetra. Today, we are discussing cybersecurity and cyber threat. These two issues cannot be discussed separately, they have to be addressed together. Over the past decade, we have witnessed multiple cases of theft, financial losses, data breaches. In 2022 alone, India witnessed 1.39 million cybersecurity incidents. Isn't that shocking? To discuss this further, address this issue further, we have with us Mr. Dhananjay Ganjoo, Managing Director for India and SAARC at F5. A veteran in the industry, Dhananjay is responsible for driving F5's growth strategy in India and the SAARC region. He's responsible for bringing end to end solutions and competitive security offerings together. All this so that F5 becomes a preferred choice for customers to create, secure, and operate adaptive applications. Hi Dhananjay, welcome to Techcetra. How are you today?
Hi, Deepthi. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
To start with, Dhananjay, I want to ask you what are some of the most common cybersecurity threats and how can enterprises safeguard themselves from these kind of threats?
So, Deepthi, let's first try to understand what are we trying to protect before we decide or before we discuss what are the most common cyber threats. There are many. There are countless number of cyber threats,
Right.
but the essence is what are we really trying to protect? And for that, let me give you a very interesting analogy. It's a very simple analogy. I'm sure your listeners will enjoy it. Don't hold me to binding that analogy totally to technology, but it's an analogy that works. You'll not forget it. So today morning when you left home,
Hmm.
um, you got dressed and you stepped out of your home. You locked your door and you gave it a little tug, and you said, "Oh yeah, everything is locked up. I can leave my home now." Right?
True.
Now, when a thief, God forbid, but if a thief were to come, let me ask you a question. Is your thief interested in your front door?
No.
Is exactly right. And when you left, before you left, did you lock up your cash, your jewelry inside a locker, and you put that inside a cupboard and you lock the cupboard too, right?
Yeah.
Because your key assets are your cash and jewelry, not your front door.
Right.
And the thief, when they want to break down the door, they want your key assets, which you haven't left on your center table.
Yep.
You've locked them up as well. So you've done like double locking. So cybersecurity works pretty much in a layered fashion. You lock your front door, you lock your key assets such as your cash and jewelry before you leave your home. So in the cyber world, the cyber attackers or the hackers are literally not interested in your front door. So what is the front door in the cyber world? That's your network.
Hmm.
They are interested in breaking down the network, but they gain nothing out of it. There is
Right.
zero financial gain for the hacker. And let me also explain, hackers are not doing it for fun of it. Hackers are doing to gain some, financial outcome out of that. And whatever hackers do also costs them money.
Hmm.
It costs compute. They have to get compute from various places, or at least hack into someone else's computer and use that compute. They pay for bandwidth charges. They do exactly whatever we do. They pay exactly whatever we pay. It's just that they multiply it so many times over that the cost of an attack for an hacker has to be lesser than the financial gain.
Hmm.
Because if the cost of the attacker is equal to the financial gain, there is nothing in it for the hacker, right?
Right.
So exactly. So what is more desirable for a hacker to come to break down the front door or get your key assets? And then we'll discuss what are the key assets. It's like, okay, you've broken down the network, but your key assets are your applications,
Yeah.
right? That's what the hackers are after because they can either steal away personal information and sell that on the dark web, or they can, game the logic of the application. Like one of the most frequently exploited logic is forgot password,
Yeah.
right? You forget your password and then you
That
have a
happens
little
so often.
correct. And then people use different mechanisms. Somebody will send you an OTP. Somebody will ask you to enter a few codes that you personally have on you. Um, and to be honest with you, I don't want to scare, but all of this can be broken,
Hmm.
right? So the hacker is after your application. That's what we want to establish first,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And some of the names of common attacks that you must have heard as well are ransomware,
Yes.
or DDoS, which is denial of service. Denial of service is like when a massive attack comes in a pipe, which is an internet-facing application pipe. It basically, the server that is on which the application is hosted is now busy responding to these massive amount of requests which are coming to the server. That's a denial of service because you're denying somebody else the opportunity to log in into the server
Hmm.
because you've kept the server so busy by yourself, right?
Hmm.
So that's denial of service. That's very, very common. I think the number of denial of service attacks in India are now massively increasing. Secondly,
Right.
are bots,
Yes.
right? So HTTPS traffic is the web traffic. 80% of that traffic is machine. It's
Hmm.
not human beings.
Correct.
What we need to determine is whether anybody who's coming into our network, is it a human being or is it a machine?
Hmm.
That's the first question typically that is asked. And if it's a human being, allow the human being. And if it's a machine, decide whether it's a good bot or a bad bot. And there are various techniques to determine that. So when
Correct.
you allow a human being to come in, then you got to figure out whether what is the intent of this human being, right? That's the second check. And again, you look through various signals and decide, okay, this looks like a human being. And then you
Right.
allow the human being further. And when the human being comes in, you have to do a third and final check. Is
Yeah.
it Deepti? Is it who you really say you are? Is it Deepti? Or is it a synthetic identity and a stolen identity of Deepti? You look like Deepti, but you aren't. Hence, what's your
Yeah.
intention? So
Yeah.
these are various kind of layered defenses that organizations build. And the most common attacks, the one that is becoming extremely popular as a discussion with our customers is APIs.
Hmm.
And I'll give you a very simple example. I don't know, do you use Cred or Paytm or Google
Yes,
Pay?
of course. We all do, don't
Yeah,
we?
yeah. And
Our generation's going
exactly,
cashless.
exactly. And I'm glad they are. It increases my business. Uh, so have you ever thought that when you installed Cred, how does
Hmm.
Cred get your bank balance, or how does GPay get your bank balance? Well, what happened was Cred asked you only once, saying, "Hey, will you allow me to go to your bank, query your bank, and allow your bank to give me your bank balance?" And you said yes once, and that's
Of
it,
course.
finished. So
And
every time,
all of these things are so intricately weaved into the terms and conditions that we all
exactly,
just
you
randomly
blindly
be
say
like,
yes
oh my
to.
God, we need to make a payment right now.
Correct.
But then we don't look at these terms and conditions. We just say yes, 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 just out of
True.
irritation.
So what is making this happen? How does Cred get access to your bank? How does GPay or Paytm or PhonePe get access to your bank?
We
Because
give
you've
them.
allowed it, right?
Yeah.
And what is the technology that is making it happen? It's called API,
Right.
right? Application Programming Interface, APIs.
Right.
So
Right.
the API traffic in the world today is much larger and greater and exponentially growing than any other traffic.
Hmm.
So cyber attackers are, it's like a API world is like a honeypot. They get attracted to wherever there is more action,
Yeah.
isn't it? So
True.
API is the new flavor of the world for hackers. And there are
Interesting.
various techniques that hackers can insert themselves and build shadow APIs. When we go to organizations and ask organizations saying, do you know how many APIs you have? And some of them know, most of them don't. And API protection is now, or API attacks is now on the rise. So to answer your question in a very longish way,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, you did mention API, but then companies are also transforming digitally,
Mhm.
right? So, how do you think digital transformation is impacting the overall cybersecurity in India and also across the world?
So I love stories, Deepti. Let me tell you another one, a very
Go ahead.
interesting one, right? This is just to make sure that we understand what we are trying to protect. So let's go back 200 years ago, right? So in the year 1800 something, when companies measured their assets on their balance sheet,
Hmm.
what were they using as a yardstick for measurement or putting in? They used to count all the buildings that they have.
Yeah.
They count all the machineries,
Mm-hmm.
how many multiple offices, physical assets that they have across the
Right.
continents, right? So it was more of the physical assets, and then the goods you sold were put on your balance sheet.
Hmm.
And that made you either a heavyweight or a lightweight.
Hmm.
That era of the world was measured in what we call as physical capital. That was the era of physical capital.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then in the mid 1900s, you had the IBMs and the McKinseys and the HPs of the world introduce and give you business process engineering and compute. And we increased the overall efficiency of business and became faster at doing things
Hmm.
because of these added benefits, right? That era in the mid 90s, 1900s was directly proportional to the human intellect that made it happen. And hence, that era is called human capital,
Right.
right? Now, in the 21st century, what is the key capital of the customer? And that's something that we should think about. The key capital, in very simple terms, is we currently we are establishing connection through an application called Zoom.
Right.
Organizations, they work using applications.
Yep.
So, if at any time an application of an organization were to go down, the organization collapses. And you can look at any
Absolutely.
industry across the world today,
Hmm.
any industry, small to big, everybody is using applications. And if the
Correct.
application were to shut down, even
So,
before the CEO comes to know, the
yeah.
whole Twitter world explodes.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that the currency of today is data.
That is the currency, but your capital is your application.
Acha, capital is my application.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's like physical capital, human capital, application capital.
Application capital. Okay.
It's the application which is generating all the data.
Hmm.
Data is a byproduct of the application. But yes, equally
Okay.
important, they say data is the new oil. But who is
Yeah.
generating that? Right? It's the application which is generating all that data once you've captured it, right?
Right. Right.
Right. So we are living in the world of application capital, and hence what we have done is we have exposed ourselves to the internet because that's the only way to do business today. Or
Hmm.
one of the most important ways of doing business today is to keep your shop open 24 by 7. And when you expose your assets to the internet, you expose yourself to multiple threats.
Hmm.
Um, and there is a long list of threats that we can go over, but let me give you another interesting, thought process for your listeners. One is, how much money do we spend out of our budget to protect our applications versus how much money do we spend to protect our front door, and where are the hackers going? So it's a bit of a crazy situation right now. When
Hmm.
we look at the budget spends of organizations,
Hmm.
80% of the budget is spent on infrastructure,
Right.
building the network, building all the pipes, connecting the pipes to the internet, and about 20% is spent on other stuff. Now, 80% of the attackers are coming to your application, but only
Hmm.
20% of the budget is left to safeguard your application. So the message
Hmm.
to the learners, to the listeners are, listen, it's important to take a balance of your budget and pay equal attention to the applications, which are your life today, in
Hmm.
today's application economy, and then balance that out and not spend everything out only on your front door. Keep something for the locker in which you want to keep your, family jewels.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
if you want me to continue, there could be things like automated attacks, advanced persistent threats, ransomware, phishing, deep fakes that you've been listening, all these
And I'm going to come
celebrities.
to that next. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Dhananjay, you mentioned deepfakes, and that brings me to the topic of generative AI. Generative AI is evolving at a breakneck speed. It is something that has become a household name in a matter of just 1 year. How is AI affecting cybersecurity, and what are some of the emerging risks, in this domain?
So let me answer the affecting part first. It is AI is both good and bad. The bad part of AI is now AI tools are available. AI tool could be very simply called a botnet, which is available. So you don't have to be an hacker or an expert
Hmm.
coder. You can just go to the dark web, pick up an AI tool or a bot for a few dollars, and then start launching an attack. You could even buy username passwords, that are available on the darknet and start launching an attack. So you don't really have to be an expert hacker. It's all there. Now, the flip
Okay.
side to AI is we can also use AI to protect companies. So yeah, I'll give you a very simple example. One of the simplest example is zero-day attacks has no signature, so we don't know how to protect them. Think of it like how we had
Yeah.
the COVID, where we did not have any vaccine on the zero day, but over a period of time, a vaccine was developed. So in the internet cybersecurity world, once we know the signature of the attack, we can protect other assets and other properties in other geographies. So we can
Hmm.
quickly
Hmm.
determine that, and the engine that quickly determines that is an AI engine. It has automatically, without human intervention, learned that there was a new attack for which there was no signature in the database, and hence called zero day, and hence build protection against that for other assets which haven't been attacked just yet. So
Hmm.
we were ahead of the attackers for geographies that they haven't attacked, or assets that they haven't attacked. And we can tell all our customers who are connected to us saying, here is what we've heard. So that's just one of the deployments for AI. In terms of number of attacks, there can be several automated attacks, like I talked about, advanced persistent threats,
Mm-hmm.
which are prolonged attacks on a particular asset of a customer or multiple assets of a customer. And these are all automated. There is no human being doing it.
Hmm.
It's just like you switch on a machine and the machine is actually attacking you, right?
Yeah.
And then phishing attacks that you've heard of, deep fakes, celebrities are getting targeted.
Absolutely.
Those can be, exploited by cyber criminals impersonating individuals and sending out messages that shouldn't be sent out in the first place.
Yep.
Then there is insider threats. So not just outside, uh, unbeknown to themselves, the machine of an inside person is already infected, and hence they're already
Um,
inside the network through various sources by downloading free stuff which has got a virus attached to it. So you have to be very careful what you click, what you download.
yeah.
And everything that you see free out there is not necessarily safe. That's the message I have for your listeners.
But India is very different from other countries, right? It's diverse. It has small businesses, large businesses, enterprises. The business landscape is as varied as can be. So, how does F5 cater to, specific needs of different kinds of businesses?
Oh, that's a, very good question. It boils down to two things. One is efficacy of the solution that F5 has,
Mm-hmm.
and the format in which it can be consumed.
Hmm.
In the world that we used to live in the past, just recent past, everything was inside the data center, and our kind of appliances were being used inside the data center of a client, like it was a hardware big box that was sitting right next to the application and protecting the biggest asset that you have, which is your application. But
Hmm.
as customers digitally transformed, they moved to the cloud, and so did we. So we
Yeah.
converted our boxes into a piece of code, and we followed the application around. So today, without actually anything lesser in terms of the code, in terms of feature and functionality, so whatever feature and functionalities a customer used to get out of an appliance, the same is available in a code that can follow the application wherever the application is going, either on private cloud or on public cloud. Or different
Right.
data centers that are available. So we can follow them as a piece of code. The good part is the efficacy is the same, syntax is the same, no relearning, no retraining, everything's cool. The other thing that has happened in the world is they said, I don't want to buy such a big technology because I'm only
Hmm.
going, by the time I completely use this technology, it will be 3 years. So we developed what is called a as a service model. So today I only want to protect one asset. I don't have to buy a big box that can protect thousands of assets. So
Yeah.
so okay, fine. You can protect that big the big asset that you have by what in the technical language it's called, or www dot something is called a URL.
Mm-hmm.
So we can now filter down to a single URL that you want to protect, or
Correct.
thousands of URL that a company wants to protect. So as a service model, you pay only for that much you're consuming. So now F5 is able to offer its platform in different consumption models, making it simpler for the SMB, SME, or even very small organizations to consume technology, which is
Hmm.
number one in terms of application protection and not having to buy or invest a lot of money. Um, there's one important point I want to make for especially large organizations.
Sure.
Security is not about a product.
Hmm.
When we do cybersecurity, it's never about a product. Now, I can give you a couple of examples. One of the examples that I usually give is everybody has access to a canvas, a paint, and a paintbrush, but
Hmm.
not everybody is an artist. Similarly, if I have access to a great technology like protecting cyber threats from cyber criminals, unless and until there are people who know how to deploy and effectively use that technology,
Hmm.
having that technology is not enough, not good enough, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you two examples. One was a government entity where they were under a massive DDoS attack,
Hmm.
denial of service to its servers, and we onboarded them. F5 can onboard, it's a free service for our customers. We can either onboard in an emergency or start protecting them in an emergency. But
Hmm.
the key thing was um, the teams behind were very effective. They knew how to use the tools that we have. So
Yeah.
having trained resources that know the tool is very important. Second was a bank that was under a bot attack.
Hmm.
And we were doing a POC with that bank, and the bank said, hey, listen, hold on. Can you let the POC continue and move from being only in inform mode to remediate mode, which basically means for earlier we were just flagging that you are under a bot attack and not doing anything about it.
Hmm.
And then they said, listen, why don't you remediate and protect us and stop the attack? When we started stopping the attack, the hackers retooled
Hmm.
consistently over a period of time,
Yeah.
and then they gave up because we made their attack more expensive, right? For
Right.
3 4 days they kept on trying, then a week later they came back again, and a week later they came back again. Eventually they give up. They only give up for a certain period of time before they come back again. So it's like, we have to be right always, they have to be right once, kind of a scenario.
Thank you so much, Dhananjay, for such an informative discussion. It definitely helped me understand cybersecurity and cyber threats far better. Any last piece of advice for enterprises and individuals alike?
I keep telling anybody I meet, if it's too good to be true, it's definitely the other way around. So
Yeah.
don't believe anything which is too good to be true. And if it's like really unbelievable, then it's unbelievable. It's not happened. Just suspect everything. I remember one of my army friends telling me, in God we trust, everything else we suspect. We
Mm.
are exactly in the same environment, and just suspect everything. It should be your indicator should be just believe it's not true rather than believing it the other way around. Don't click anything, don't download anything, don't take anything free. It's definitely infected.
So, whether you're an individual or you're a business owner, being attentive and proactive when it comes to your digital assets can help you secure them from any kind of cybersecurity threats that are out there. We hope that this conversation provided you with a lot of clarity and solutions to protect your data, which is, in any case, your currency these days.
Thank you, Deepthi. It was nice to be here.